Hello guys, this is Agony333, and it's been a while since I made a video, so I figure that I should make another one. And it's going to be another movie review because it's been a while since I've done that. And this movie is the second film from Gaspar Noe. I Stand Alone was the first. I did a review on that earlier. Kind of long and drawn out. I'm going to try to keep this short, but sorry. But this movie review is off of Irreversible. Sorry if it glares, yeah. So this is the second film. This was the first one that I watched. I Stand Alone being the second, Enter the Void being the third. And in my opinion, this is the most disturbing one of the three. And extremely graphic, fantastic story, very unique way that it is done. I'll start by going off on a summary of what it's really about. And it's pretty much about this, a girl named Alex is what the story is mainly based around. It's a girl named Alex and her boyfriend, whose name is Marcus, and a best friend of Alex and previous boyfriend, Pierre. And those three characters are the main characters of the story. And pretty much what happens is, unfortunately, after a party one night, Alex gets in a fight with her boyfriend, decides to go home, and for no reason, pretty much only because she was at the wrong place, wrong time, she is raped and beaten badly, very gruesome. And the rape is one of the most that I've ever seen and know of, most realistic representation of it. It is like a 10-minute scene of the rape itself, and that might be a few minutes extra on top of that, which is the beating after the rape. And it is just really, really powerful. It's, you know, very disturbing because of how realistic it is. But I will go on with, yeah, the summary. That's pretty much what it's about. It's about she gets raped, and after that, Marcus finds out, and he decides he wants to get revenge, find the guy who did it, and fucking kill him. And yeah, it's a good motive for sure, at least to me. So yeah, that's the story, is him, and then Pierre tags along to try and stop him from committing this act. And that is pretty much the summary, is it's all about revenge because of this horrible act that has been committed to Alex, who is a very innocent and nice person. And now I'm going to go into the spoilers, so if you'd ever like to see the movie is fantastic. If you ever want to see the movie, if you haven't seen it and you don't want to hear spoilers, then you might want to shut the video off, pause it, but now I'm going to actually go into the film itself and explain some of the story. So the film, the reason it is very unique is it's done in reverse chronological order, and that pretty much means it is each scene that is shown, it shows it, the storyline is backwards. You know, the scene itself is obviously done like a normal movie, but you see the ending first, and then you see the scene that comes before that and before that. So at the actual end of the movie, you're seeing the beginning of the story. So you see it completely unfold in a different way than you normally would in a normal film. And the way Gaspar Noe did this, the acting and the way that he made the film in that reverse chronological order, normally a normal person who'd make a film like that, it would probably fail or be very difficult to be a coherent story, a story you can understand and a good story. But he does it perfectly. And that's why he's one of my favorite directors and writers, is because every movie he does, he puts so much emotion and he makes the movie just fantastic to watch. Not just disturbing and not just emotional, but he makes the film itself unique. Like in I Stand Alone, where he did the gunshots, I think I mentioned in my other review, where when the butcher would get angry and have rage, like a moment of rage, there would be a gunshot noise that would announce, you know, just the fierce anger that would just hit him, you know, in a moment. And this film, the uniqueness of it is the reverse chronological order. But the film begins with the credits showing instead of, like a normal beginning movie credits where it flashes on the screen. It starts with, well, it does start with a little bit of that, but it starts also after that with the credits going up. Instead of like at the end of the movie where it's going down, it's going up and it starts to get messed up and everything. It's really cool how he does the credits for his movies are fantastic. Anyways, the actual film begins with Marcus going into a gay club called, oh god, I'm sorry, I cannot remember the name of the gay club. It's been a while since I've watched the movie. I was going to go from recollection of memory. But he's going into a gay club. And the reason, as you find out through the scene, is the person he's after is supposedly here. So, he goes to this gay club. Pierre's following him, and Marcus is fucking pissed. And when you first watch the movie, unless you heard what the movie's about, you don't necessarily know why. But I did, I knew what the movie's about. But he's pissed off, obviously. He comes in and he's just saying, where is this guy? And he says the guy's name, I think it's Latenya or something like that. I can't exactly say his name right, probably, but he's trying to find this guy, and he's shouting his name. He's talking to all these people, and the gay club, is one of the most disgusting places. And I have nothing against gay people, and I know there's a lot of probably normal gay nightclubs or whatever. I mean, the place that this is filmed in, the environment, the people, just are fucking sleazy. The way they are represented and they look, I mean, it's nasty, it's gritty as hell. I mean, you don't really get this much grit, the way, the atmosphere of it. I mean, he's going into this dark nightclub-like area, and it's almost not even like a nightclub, it almost feels like a basement, like a claustrophobic area, and he's going through here, and there's people having sex, and bondage, and all kinds of sick shit going on, and he is like, he doesn't even care about it. He just walks past it, as sick as it's getting. The further he goes in, it's getting sicker. He doesn't even care. He's like walking past it, and he's asking people. He's like, hey, do you know this person? Where is he at? And the guy, because he's gay, would be like, hey, fuck me, or like, let's do something. And Marcus just gets pissed and goes on to the next guy if he can't find any answers. Eventually, he finds some answers from this one guy who says, I know him, I date him, or whatever. And Marcus pretty much attacks him, hits him, I think, once or a couple times, and threatens to, pretty much kill him if he doesn't show him where he is. And through all of this, Pierre, who through the whole movie, because this is just the first scene, but through the whole movie, he always is trying to tell Marcus, don't do this, Alex wouldn't want this, this isn't going to solve anything, no, someone dying is not going to solve anything, this is going to cause problems, and he's trying to stop him. And Marcus is just grows some balls, and pretty much tells him, shut up, through the whole movie. But, anyways, they find a guy. They come face to face with two guys, and he comes to the guy who is the man who did it, supposedly. He's the man who did it. He comes up to him and he says, are you Latenya, or whatever. He's like, are you Latenya? And then the guy's like, who wants to know and all this. Well, anyways, through their conversation, that guy's friend intervenes and ends up shoving him, and those two get into an argument and then a fight. So the fight ends up resulting in Marcus getting his arm broken on the floor, and that man, the best friend, not the actual Latenya who he was talking to, but the best friend of that Latenya asshole who intervenes, that guy trying to rape Marcus, he starts trying to rape him, and there's a group of gay men around them, a group of people, and it's disturbing. I mean, they just watch, and they're actually beating off, and just, it's disgusting. They're gonna watch some man being beaten and raped, and that gets them off. They're just fucking sick in the fucking head, like this movie is. But yeah. Anyways, Pierre, the one who's been the whole time against it, comes out of nowhere with a fire extinguisher, knocks that guy to the ground, and to me, the reason I'll explain later, he bashes his head in, and extremely realistic style, as in literally he crushes this man's skull. And the way it's done, that's the first disturbing scene in the movie. It is really fucking brutal. I mean, you see the reactions on the man's face, the crying, and he's crying, and you see like when he gets knocked down first, he starts crying because obviously he gets fucking hit in the face with a fire extinguisher. I mean, you'd fucking cry if you got smacked in the face with a fire extinguisher. So he's on the floor, and he's like crying, and I think it might show like a tooth busted out and shit. And then Pierre just kind of loses it and just hits him again, and as you see it, you see more of his teeth are gone, and he just seems more in pain, and then he just continues to smash his head in until finally his whole entire head is caved in, and you see that it's all up front, right there in the camera. You see this guy's skull get crushed in agonizingly. The camera's shaking and crazy, and you just see this guy brutally get fucking his head crushed in. And then that scene ends with them. Well, I think I fucked up slightly because it shows a scene before that. Sorry, I did fuck up, but the scene before that, anyways, the actual beginning of the movie, it shows them being escorted to the police cars, and they're pretty much, after he busts that guy's head in, he's taken to the police cars and they're put into custody. And the actual first scene of the movie, like I said, I fucked up, I'm sorry, the first scene of the movie has a cameo appearance of the butcher from I Stand Alone, and he's talking to this guy, a friend of his, I guess, and he's talking about how he went to prison for molesting his daughter. So it kind of, I guess, tells you what happens at the end of I Stand Alone, because I Stand Alone ended, remember, if you watch my review, ends with him saying, maybe I'll molest my daughter, maybe I won't. Well, this movie begins with a cameo appearance of him pretty much admitting he ended up molesting his daughter and going to prison for it. But anyways, the reason that moment is significant is he mentions time destroys everything. He mentions that quote. And that is a very important quote because that pretty much sums up what this whole movie's about, and I'll explain that later in the review. But that's the first scene. The scene after that is where they're getting escorted to the police car and they're pretty much put into custody. And you don't know why. And then the scene after that is the one I told you where they go into the club and they bash that guy's head in. So then you find out that's why that's why Marcus's arm was broken, that's why they're escorted into the police, and then while they're being escorted to the police, you see some men shouting angry things at them, fucking really offensive and mean shit. So then, I'm going to try and skip some scenes. I don't want to go through the whole fucking movie like I did I Stand Alone. But through the course of these scenes, you see what led up to this gay bar. You see them, the scene before that, I believe, was where they ended up, they're driving in this cab, and then, Marcus is like pissed off and he's like, I'm gonna find this fucking club. He gets out, he goes into this bar or some restaurant and starts flipping out where is the place. He ends up meeting a pedestrian, finding out the location of that gay club where that guy would be at. And pretty much the scene before that shows how they got the cab car. And they pretty much, they hailed a cab, and it was, I think, a Korean man, an Asian man, sorry. And they pretty much get into a dispute, because Marcus is riled up, he wants vengeance. And you'll see, if you watch this movie, you'll see why. He wants vengeance, he wants it now, and this man's fucking around. So they end up, in this dispute, the Asian guy pulls out a can of pepper spray, Marcus ends up getting a hold of him and spraying him in the face and hijacking the car. And pretty much is like, if you're not going to help me, fuck you, kicks him out of the car and decides to try and find it on his own. And the scene before that, yeah, I really don't want to go through the whole movie, but pretty much, he found out about this gay club because earlier in the movie, later in the movie, I'm sorry, because the story can be kind of confusing until you watch the movie. Later in the movie, you find out that all the information they found is because they hired these guys who are pretty much like gangsters, and they say, we know the streets, we know the people, we can find who did this. And they have the ID of a woman. And pretty much so they go around and they pretty much say, hey, you can get revenge if you pay us well enough. If you pay us well enough, we'll find this guy. The cops aren't going to do anything about this. Cops don't do nothing for rape victims. You pay us money, we'll help you find this guy, and we'll help you get justice. like it is meant to have. So Marcus, in his rage and his anger, he says yes, and they search. They end up tracking the woman down, and it turns out she's not even a woman. She's a prostitute, but she's not even a woman. She's a transsexual, and they pretty much threaten the information out of her, where the name of the club and the name of the guy who did it. And then, like I said, then from onwards they get in a dispute with them, and then a bunch of prostitutes chase them down the street, and then they end up getting into the cab, and blah blah blah. You already know what happened then. But before all of that, it shows, finally, I'm thinking this is where, no, okay, it doesn't show the rape yet, but it shows the party. And pretty much at the party, Marcus, who is the boyfriend of Alex, Marcus and Pierre and Alex all came to the party together, and Marcus is getting drunk. He's drinking, he ends up doing cocaine, he's getting really fucked up, having a good time, ends up starting to cheat on his girlfriend, and Pierre's like, you shouldn't do that to her, because Pierre, he still loves her. Remember, Pierre's the best friend of Alex, and was a previous lover, and he still loves her. He never stopped loving her. And he sees this new guy that she's with, and he fucking despises him at first. I don't know if he despises him, but he just doesn't like him, you know what I mean? He's jealous. And he's like, you should be loyal to her, and he's like trying to hook Pierre up with women. He's a fucking idiot because he's all drugged up and shit. Well, anyways, he's making out with girls, about to cheat, but then he ends up going to Alex, and she sees how he is. She sees him all high and all fucked up, and she gets fed up with his shit, and she leaves. And this is where we see the rape scene. She storms off, and she's waiting for a cab, and I'm going to call this person an asshole even if it's not their fault. This person's an asshole, okay? She meets this girl, and the girl's like, oh, you should take the overpass, the underpass. It's a lot safer. It turns out not to be so fucking safe, but Alex listens to her, goes in the underpass, and that's when this 10-minute rape scene happens. She goes into the underpass, and it's just like this hallway. It's like a red hallway and underpass. There's no one there at first. And then the woman that, transsexual, you see her come up against the wall towards the end, and you see Latenya, the guy, coming up, and he's like trying to beat her, and he's like screaming shit at her. And Alex is just caught in the middle of this. She's just like sitting there kind of shocked. And then Latenya kind of turns his attention to her, and that stupid bitch transsexual decides this is her moment to slip out. So she runs, but her like purse gets knocked to the floor, and that's how the ID was on the floor. And so then Latenya, because he's an asshole, for no apparent reason, he looks at her, and he pulls out a knife, and he pretty much starts calling her insults. He starts saying, you know, you rich slut, blah blah blah. He's calling her a whore. He's saying all these things, and she begs him to just let her go, and he pretty much tells her to shut up and all this. He gets her on the floor, and he pretty much proceeds to rape her. And you see him whip it out, and you see him rape her. You don't see like completely you don't see him like physically like, you know, doing it, but you see the rape itself, and you see him, you know, preparing for it, I guess, if you want to call it that. But he pretty much rapes her, and it's like a 10-minute scene, so it's like a full rape. You see him begin, and you see him finish, in a sense, like he goes through the whole rape, and it's fucking disgusting. I mean, she's screaming, and he has his hand over her mouth, and yeah, I mean, it's very realistic, very disturbing scene. And if that wasn't bad enough, after he's done, he's doing coke while he's raping her. After he's done, he's like, where are you going? You ain't getting away. And he starts kicking her in the stomach. He kicks her a couple times, really, really brutal. Even kicks her in the face. That's one of the most brutal hits I've seen in the movie. It's just like, pow! In the face, and it's like, God damn, you're just such a cruel piece of shit. That was what was going through my mind when I watched this. I was like, you're such a fucking bastard. And he kicks her in the face, and then he has her down, and then he just starts punching her repeatedly in the face, over and over, just beating the living hell out of her. And then he ends this beating by taking her face and smashing it into the concrete. Over and over, smashing her face into the concrete. And then he stands up after he's done with this, calls her a couple more names like a pig and a whore, and spits on her, and then leaves. And that was obviously the most disturbing scene in the movie. You know, someone's head getting crushed in my mind is disturbing, but it doesn't compare to seeing a innocent woman getting raped and beaten such savagely. And another disturbing factor, a part that makes this movie that much more angering, this scene much more, bullshit, is while she's being raped, actually before she's being raped, when she's on the floor and it's about to take place, you see in the background a guy walking in. And he turns around and leaves when he sees what's happening. He doesn't stop it. He turns around and he leaves and lets fate take its course. What a good Samaritan, right? I mean, he doesn't stop the fucking crime. He sees this woman and he turns like a coward and walks the fuck out. Like, that just pissed me off. And I mean, it's realistic though. I mean, it's realistic, not everyone's gonna get saved. You know what I mean? People are fucking cowards like that. And then pretty much right after that happens is when you see Marcus leaves this club because he feels bad about what he did, and then he leaves the club, sees sirens, sees an ambulance, and he's like, what's going on? And he sees Alex on a stretcher. Her face is all bloody and bleeding, and she's all just banged up. And that was one of the saddest scenes in the movie to me, was when he breaks down. He just breaks down and starts crying and weeping and saying her name. And that's what happens. He cries, he breaks down. And the scene after that shows them heading to the party. It's kind of like, it's not a lame scene, but I mean, it doesn't, like, from what compared to you've seen, it's kind of, but it shows them heading to the party and joking, and Pierre and her talking about their love interest. And then the first scene of the movie, the ending of the story, it ends with the party's about to begin. They get a phone call from Pierre. And so this is practically the beginning of the story, but it's the end of the movie. And Marcus wakes up, he wakes Alex up, and they're about to head to the party, and he decides to go out and get some alcohol. And it's also a sad scene because he's playful with her, he's just joking around, and he's loving with her. And when you see this, it makes it much more sad, the fact of what has happened, because then that's when you really realize that not only Marcus wasn't just pissed, he wasn't, that does show he cares how pissed he was, but he does love her. That's when you really realize that he truly did love her, and he does love her. And, even though the stupid shit he did at that party, he did love her, and he cared about her. And then the movie ends with the mother of all bullshit. The movie ends with her, she pretty much tells Marcus that she missed her period, and she has a pregnancy test. He leaves to go get the alcohol, and the movie ends pretty much, she does the pregnancy test and finds out. It doesn't show the pregnancy test, but to her reaction, which she's happy, to me it signifies that she was pregnant. She was pregnant, pretty much, with Marcus's kid. And he said, in that scene when he's all playful with her, he says how he'd be happy too, because he loves her. And it pretty much ends with a scene that is before all of that, before that even, and it just shows, her reading a book in a park with children, all innocent. And that's how the movie ends. And it ends literally with the quote, "Time destroys everything." So, yeah, the story, she's pregnant, they get in a fight at the party, she leaves, they love each other, but she leaves in anger, gets beaten and raped. And then the whole movie, he's trying to find who did it. And another part that's just bullshit is, as a twist, I guess, Latanya got away with it. Because if you remember when I described the first scene, he confronts Latanya and he's like, "Are you Latanya?" And his friend intervenes. The guy intervenes. So the guy who's friends with Latanya dies. And Latanya, as such a scumbag piece of shit as he is, after his friend's head's been crushed in, you see him standing there with a fucking smirk on his face like this. Like he enjoyed his own fucking friend defending him getting killed. That's how much of a scumbag he is. So pretty much that's the story, you know. She gets raped. More than likely she's dead, or the child's gone, at least, because, I mean, she got kicked in the side, her face is punched in, and she's probably dead. She was in a coma right after that because of her face and all the bullshit. And, you know, they wanted revenge, they didn't get revenge. They killed an innocent man, even if the other man was a piece of shit. Latanya got away with the crime. And now they're going to jail. Both of them, Pierre and Marcus, are going to jail for the crime of murder. So that story just turned out great, didn't it? But as a final thing, I summed up the whole story as quick as I could. Here's the final things that I was wanting to talk about with this. During the beginning of the movie, there is... Gaspar Noe put a noise into it. You cannot even hear it. But the way he has the camera shakes through the whole film, and to me it goes perfectly with it, because it shows, it captures the atmosphere and the feelings and the emotion of it. It's all erratic, you know, frantic, you know, shit has hit the fan, you know, people are, you'd have to just watch it, but it goes with it. The camera's shaking and it's all crazy because of the situation at hand. It goes with the situation at hand. But the subliminal sound that he put in, it's the sound, when a person watches this film, it makes the person somewhat sick. It's on purpose. Gaspar Noe put that into the movie, and to me, it fits. I didn't really notice the effects, but other people have said they notice effects of feeling kind of sick to their stomach and other things. And it's only during the beginning, like through the gay bar and all that. But it fits because that's how they're feeling. You know, Marcus, through the whole night, he, like, you know, his adrenaline, his rage, you know, the cocaine, he's freaking out. He's miserable inside. But another thing I wanted to touch note on, the thing that surprises me when I think of this story, is how the whole movie, Pierre was the one trying to talk Marcus out of it. And in the end, he was the one who killed that guy. And to me, the reason why is he wasn't showing it, but he was suffering just as much as Marcus was, because he still loved Alex. So he was suffering just as much as Marcus was. So by the end, when he had that guy on the floor, everything in that whole night had gotten to him by that point, and he just broke down, and he snapped, and he just killed that man, because he couldn't handle it anymore. You know, he was hiding this grief and this anger he had himself the whole movie. And finally it spilled out. And now they're both going to go to prison without justice. That's how great this movie is. But it actually is a good movie. But the biggest meaning of this movie, and I'm almost done, so I'm sorry if I'm going on long, but the biggest meaning of this movie was that, quote, time destroys everything. And I was thinking it even shows it somewhere on this DVD, but I'm not going to look for it. But, yeah. Time destroys everything. What does it mean? The whole purpose of this film is time destroys everything means it's referring to innocence. Alex, the girl, the woman, she resembles innocence because she is a kind and innocent woman. You have to watch it, but she represents innocence. And, you know, she's raped and beaten almost to death. Time destroys everything, including innocence in a person. You know, she's an innocent person, and time destroys everything. Pretty much, you know, it only takes so much time. You know, eventually everything will be destroyed, including innocence. Time destroys everything. So, you know, eventually innocence will be lost. And that's pretty much what this movie's about, is it shows how this disgusting world destroys innocence. It's a very depressing thought when you think of it. How, you know, there is no innocence in the world because time will destroy everything, you know. All innocence eventually is destroyed. And Yeah, it's a very depressing movie, really, but it is a fantastic movie. The acting is fantastic, and I read into it, and I mean, for most of the movie, when Gaspar Noe made this, he only made, I think it was 3 pages of script. And the whole scene, like in the subway, where before they're heading to the party, like a lot of the scenes was on the spot, interpreted, just said on the spot by the cast members. They came up with a lot of the script for the movie right there, right then and there, in the situation. And I mean, that's fantastic. The reason it's fantastic is it's not crappy dialogue. It's good dialogue. It helps the movie. So I mean, like, how many movies, I mean, Hollywood fucking produce where they don't have a fucking script. They make up the script on the moment, right then and there, and it's actually good, and it makes sense, and it fits the movie, and it's emotional and everything. I mean, for that, the actors in this movie did a fantastic job. I don't know any actors who could do that, who could pull that off as well as they did. They did it fantastically. But there's that, and that's, you know, pretty much everything I guess I wanted to say about this movie. The movie's fantastic. It's depressing. Fantastic acting. Another great release from Gaspar Noe, and he's amazing. I mean, I wish more people would know about him and the amazing work he does in the movies that he's made. And his third movie, which was Enter the Void, I'm going to do a review on that sometime soon, I hope. And I'm hoping he makes a fourth one, because quite frankly, he brings something disturbing but emotional and has a message behind it. And it's just fantastic the way he does things. So I hope he makes a fourth movie, and I hope that maybe some of you will want to check into Gaspar Noe, because he really is fantastic, and he deserves a lot more recognition than he gets. I mean, fuck all the Hollywood fucking directors and shit. I mean, they use budget, you know, they have all this money, and then they make movies that are pretty good. But when you look at this, how much budget did you really have? This is an indie film, you know, independent film that was shown at Sundance Film Festival. This and I Stand Alone, and they both received awards. I mean, probably not that much funding, not compared to those huge releases, but they nailed it that much more. They actually have a message behind them. They have emotions. They have fantastic acting. The actors that aren't well known that much, you know, like I think the woman who plays Alex is a better known actor. But I mean, other than that, I mean, you can't really compare that. The fact that there was less pay and they pretty much kicked ass, they made this movie as good as it was. To me, this was the best of the 3 movies. And I only say that lightly, because I mean, all 3 of them are really good to me. And I mean, that's just me though. I mean, I'm not sure if other people would get, you know, bored by them in some ways. But for me, they're all 3 great. But this one, to me, stands out as the most disturbing in a sense, and the most, just, his best film. And I really recommend checking him out, looking into him, you know, Gaspar Noe. Fantastic guy. He needs to make more stuff. He needs to get more recognition for sure. And if I was reviewing this, I think I gave I Stand Alone an 8 out of 10. And this one I would give an 8.5 or like a 9 out of 10. Because this movie, quite frankly, is amazing. It's a great movie. And I warn you though, just, you know, don't watch it if you have a weak stomach, you know, if you can't handle something like this. I mean, when it was first released, a lot of people walked out of the theater. Some people even, I think, fainted. And right on the cover it says, "Warning, contains graphic sex and violence for mature audiences only." But it is worth it. It is worth checking into in my mind, because it's just got so much good things about it. It's a fantastic film. Very underrated by the people I know. I mean, you know, the place I live, I mean, barely anyone's heard of this movie or this director. Very underrated. It deserves so much more recognition. And 9 out of 10. And I'm sorry for the length of this video. I just wanted to get it good. But, well, this will be the end of this video. I'll see about maybe making more videos. And I'll talk to you guys later. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too long for you. So, this has been Agony333. Review of Irreversible. Peace out, everyone. Have a good day.